We're going to talk about the mobile industry and the application of blockchain right now with case study number 2, blockchain use cases for telecom. Javier Albares is our moderator for this panel, head of corporate strategy at GSMA. José Núñez, Global Head of Blockchain Competence Center at Telefónica. Bénédicte, Javelot, Orange Chief Strategy Officer. I'm going to give you the mic in 2 seconds. Katia Colucci, Strategy, Business and Digital Transformation Analyst at Telecom Italia. And Jaime, Abril, Principal Manager Fintech Partnerships at Vodafone. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you the mic. And I'm so happy because we have 2 women on this panel. This is for you.
Thank you very much. And we have prepared a few slides. Well, thank you very much for having us here. We are going to talk about the applications of blockchains for the telecom industry. Okay, so I'm going to start with a 5-minute presentation. I've got just 4 slides for you to introduce the session. I think probably all of you understand the complexity of blockchain and how potentially it's going to change business processes for enterprises, for governments, for society in general. Telecoms are not an exception, and we've been looking at this for at least for the last couple of years, trying to identify how far reality is from the potential that we all foresee of this technology. So for today, what we are going to do is we are going to try to cover three main kind of blocks, 3 main kind of aspects. One is the strategic rationale for telcos. And here, what we will try to do is to answer questions like, for example, this one, is blockchain an opportunity for telcos and why? And what are the areas of activity that operators are working on, especially in Europe? We have here 4 operators that operate not only in Europe, but also in other regions of the world. The 4 of them are members of the GSMA. The GSMA is the industry association of the mobile operators worldwide, and the 4 of them are members of our board. The second part, we want to also cover the challenges, because I think we have talked a lot about the opportunities. I've been here listening at least the last 2 sessions, but I think we don't talk too much about the challenges, and there are many, many challenges, and I think there is, someone mentioned interesting word in the previous session. I would prefer to talk about hype versus reality and understanding in which moment of the technology cycle we are now. So I think the way we try to frame it is we try to understand what is the problem that blockchain is trying to solve, and from there we try to evolve our understanding. One of the important things in terms of challenges that we are evaluating at the telecom industry is how we can crack the trilemma of blockchain. I will explain what that it means, but unless we identify ways in which blockchain can work for multiple use cases and for multiple business models, and we are not there yet, I think it's going to be very difficult that blockchain in general scales. In the third part of the session, we will try to cover use cases, and specifically how can we move from proof of concepts. There are plenty of them, plenty of trials, but we don't see much commercial applications or commercial services that can go really mainstream globally. And I think this is one of the questions that we are trying to solve. And the last part of it, if we have time, it will be how we can collaborate with companies like the ones that we probably represent and shape a sustainable ecosystem. So let me just give you one hint of each of these 3 topics. On the first one, for telcos, blockchain is just a tool. So we are, it's an enabler to achieve an objective. So we are not, let's say, focused on technology to the point that we make it like the main thing to do. And we have to understand what are the industry drivers that move, for example, in this case, the telecom industry. There are 2 big ones. One is efficiency. This is an industry that is under a lot of pressure on the margin side, and everything that provides automation and simplification is going to be understood and well received. So that is one angle. Another angle is customer value. Can we really provide something, a new product, a new service that can translate into revenue growth and opportunity or not? Because if we don't position any project in one of these 2 angles, I think it's going to be very difficult to scale. There are multiple mega trends that are supporting approaches like the ones that blockchain represent. I think you have one on intelligent connectivity. We are moving into an AI world. Everything that is computing power and the future in data analytics. Everything that is exchange of digital value, which is, I think, very important. I think, basically, the cornerstone of what blockchain tries to crack. And a new phase of global competition that is here to, I think, to stay, and that I think has an important element in any decision making. So with all of these megatrends, I think in a way we have some tailwinds to have this discussion, but we need to understand it much better. In terms of areas of collaboration, at least from the GSMA point of view, these are the two where we have spent more time. One is the area of ecosystem development, ecosystem design, what kind of partnerships, what kind of consortia we need. And I think this is also about being humble on the role that each one can play. And the second one is on the governance. Someone mentioned before in the previous session regulation. I think regulation is going to be absolutely key for this to scale to real mainstream use cases. We will get into that in the second part. In terms of challenges, I think what we see is that the landscape is extremely fragmented, and I think the previous sessions have been an example. We have lots of things, but very, very small. And we have to manage conflicted requirements in many of these use cases. So if I had to identify which are the two things that probably we need to understand better before we start launching any project or any service, are these two. One is the use case that we try to define, and based on the use case, we usually have to take a lot of shortcuts and a lot of trade-offs because the technology is still not mature. That will have implications on the architecture, how much scale we can expect to achieve, and what kind of interoperability and standards we are going to need in the future. And this is an area where the GSMA specifically is already working. And the other one is on business models. And I don't think we have had, I don't know, in the previous sessions, I was not here before, much discussions about business models. But business models discussions are very important for decision makers. There is any decision maker that is in an established industry is by naturally is relatively risk averse. Therefore, if you cannot prove that you are creating an investment case that at least, and the rule that we apply is the 10x rule, so if you cannot prove that what you are proposing is 10 times better than the previous legacy system, not 10%, not 15%, 10 times better, I don't think this is something that will scale, because the amount of risk that you have to, that are involved in any business process redesign is very big. So the final issue, and I totally agree with something that was said before, is governance and regulation. So regulation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing if helps to clarify what are the rules for the game for everybody, and helps to settle the discussion in the right terms. Finally, use cases. And we believe that telcos are very well positioned to work in blockchain. Why? Because they have already assets and processes that are very well aligned with the definition of blockchain. They have local assets, data centers around the world, everywhere. They have trusted operations by you. You are all of you probably users of telecom services. And the amount of interactions that you have every day with your operator is in the billions every day. Calls, communications of any kind, emails, you name it. And we have reliable interoperability, so the services of an operator work anytime, anywhere in the world that you move to. So with this kind of base analysis, what we have tried is to separate the use cases in which the telco industry has a vested interest, because it's going to be also the customer, the user, and we have here a number of them. Identity is clearly one, cybersecurity, everything that is going to be networking and IoT management of the future software-defined networks, everything that is settlement and clearing of all these billions of transactions, of inter-carrier transactions that happen every day. This is stuff that telcos are doing, and there are some companies already working with them on this side. On the other side, what we have is areas in which telcos can collaborate with you, so can be part of an ecosystem where multiple stakeholders probably will need to collaborate. We have here the area of mobile payments and remittances, and we have a couple of experts here. We have the future area of data integrity and portability will be very important in a future artificial intelligence world. Everything that is dynamic assets or right management, and I think it was mentioned before, or the area of smart contracts. Telcos I don't think they aspire to lead on this, but they just want to use their capabilities probably to support use cases that are going to be framed here. So with this introduction, I'm going to ask, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming from Turin, Madrid, Düsseldorf, from Paris. I'd like to introduce you to the four panelists that we have here. Bénédicte Javelot is the Chief Strategy Officer of Orange. He's also a member of the strategy group of the GSMA. Thank you, Bénédicte. José Núñez is the Global Head of the Blockchain Competence Center of Telefónica, coming from Madrid. But I understand you are also working with projects in Latin America. Katia Colucci is an strategic and digital transformation analyst from Telecom Italia. He's coming from Torino today, I think. And Jaime Abril is an expert principally in Fintech partnerships from Vodafone, coming from Düsseldorf, I understand. And you've been in Malta last week, all week. Maybe we can talk about it. So I would start by maybe asking you, Bénédicte, if you want to start sharing what are the activities of Orange in blockchain, and how do you see the topic that we have today? We will get into the three topics in a later discussion.
Okay, thank you, Javier. So I'm head of Orange strategy for 5 years, and Orange, for those who don't know, we are a 40 billion euro revenue company working over Europe and Africa, Middle East, over 30 countries. And we have different activities: the core business, which is telco business, the B2B business on IT services, and a more recently known business, which is a mobile finance service. 10 years ago, we started with Orange Money mobile finance service transfer in Africa, and we launched last year in Europe, in France, an activity on the bank. We, of course, are looking at the blockchain as a disruptive opportunity for us. We are more seeing blockchain in two areas. The first, as you said, is about efficiency, how we can bring efficiency with that new model that is brought by blockchain. But I guess we will go through what the challenges are within a legacy business. And the other opportunity that we are looking at is the new services. You know that we are providing to the customer services on top of connectivity. I just mentioned mobile finance services, but we are also providing content services, and we are looking how the blockchain can help us in developing those kind of business and new businesses also.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Javier, for inviting Telefónica to come to Paris today. Well, in Telefónica, if I have to summarize what we are doing in the blockchain area, I can say that we are leading by doing, because we really think that beyond the buzzword, there are a lot of opportunities that we have to explore and to identify prior to really change the legacy system or waiting for very big business. So some of the panelists say this morning that we all think that blockchain is going to change everything, but we don't have any proof of that. So we are looking for that proofs, and after some more or less 1 year working on blockchain and trying to understand how it works and how the telco operators can benefit from that. We have finally identified 4 big areas in which we really think that we can get benefits from adopting blockchain. So the first one is making our current processes, our business processes more efficient. So we are working in just understand how we can apply blockchain to the obvious case that the industry says or apparently are pushing. So we are talking about supply chain, settlement, and this kind of business processes that are very or that are supported by legacy system. The second topic is related with trust. So the financial sector, the financial industry are talking about blockchain like the Internet of Value. We prefer to understand blockchain as the Internet of Trust, and we really think that thanks to blockchain we can add a new layer of trust in our platforms and networks in order to guarantee extra security of all the transactions that are managed by the networks. The third topic is related to identity. We really think that blockchain gives us, to the telco operators, a new chance to be relevant in the digital management business as a whole. And finally, we really think that tokenization, the asset tokenization, is the real link between the blockchains and the digital world with the physical one. So we really think, or we really can add a kind of management of assets digitally in a native way, like is the blockchain and the cryptographically enabled tokens. We really think that we can avoid a lot of processes of provision and billing and settlement between all the operations or all the transactions that are currently the core of the networks. So these are the 4 topics in which we are currently working, and in the next month probably we are started to launch commercial products based on blockchain technology.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Javier, thank you for inviting me to this panel, and good afternoon to all the attendees. I am from Telecom Italia, in particular from the Strategy and Innovation Department, where I am responsible of some project blockchain-based. Only 2 words about Telecom Italia. Is the telecom operator in Italy. Is both mobile and wireline operator. The main markets are Italy and Brazil. So our typical business is the telco business. Okay. Referring to the blockchain field, I have to say that we joined the blockchain field in a relatively recent time. I have to say a couple of years, or better, 18 months. Because for several years we have been in a study mode. During the first wave of blockchain, where blockchain meant mainly Bitcoin, the crypto economy world, and also during the first period of the second wave with the rise of Ethereum, we didn't, nothing of a very, very concrete. Things changed a couple of years ago when the companies turned towards the digital transformation of the company and what we call the digital paradigm. And in this new cultural and strategic framework, blockchain has been selected as I can say as the enabling technology of this digital transformation, because it's not correct, but as a technology, as a possible enabling technology to explore, to foster this new paradigm. So under this cultural and strategic framework, we started to explore several application scenarios beyond Bitcoin, because now we are talking about blockchain beyond the crypto economy as a technology for validating transaction and distributed data storage, where the term transaction has to be intended in a very wide sense. The transaction is data, not only money, but data, asset, and also. Okay, what we are doing? We are spanning from several application scenarios and studying several use cases. The ones in which we are in a more advanced stage are the personal data protection area and the IoT domain. In particular, in the IoT domain, we are focusing on the value chain traceability and anti-counterfeiting of the agri-food and, generally speaking, the Made in Italy domain. We are not leaving out other use cases like the digital identity and also the possibility to use blockchain in our internal processes, but we are we are more advanced than the other. And what I have to say that our criteria to approach the blockchain is a business-driven criteria. So we are approaching the various fields, looking at the ones in which there is a space for business. Okay, only two, but I think that we will talk of this later, but how we are doing this, how we are approaching the blockchain. We are approaching blockchain, of course, by internal approach, so with research, internal research in our labs, but also fostering the creation of an ecosystem with the partnership with, and leveraging also the open innovation. So this is at a very high level what we are doing. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and yeah, thank you, Javier, also for inviting me and to speak about blockchain and where we are with blockchain and what we are doing and how we see blockchain. and also very happy to be in Paris. It was some years that I haven't been, and a great venue also. So first of all, I'm responsible for fintech partnerships. This belongs to the group commercial organization, and our main focus in terms of territories is Europe. So I have visibility, let's say, of pretty much 70%, 80% of the things, initiatives, concepts, ideas that are being explored around blockchain, mostly in Europe. Of course, there are some other initiatives that are happening in India, where we have the merger, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to focus mostly in Europe. And first of all, I think, I mean, being the last and having already heard what are the areas of interest, I'd say that it's pretty much the same. I would categorize in those two broad areas. First of all, efficiencies. Why efficiencies? Is because we are also living in a very competitive market in Europe, and this is something that it's like business as usual, okay, for all of us. So whenever we have some challenges there where we can, in terms of inefficiencies, so the immediate question is whether blockchain could help or not. Also, it is, let's say, more under our control, okay? So because typically it's within the Vodafone ecosystem, between the group platform systems and operating companies' systems, and we have more control, and we know if actually we are delivering value there or not, okay? So it's easier to see. The other big area, though, and more interesting, I'd say, is the area of blockchain as an enabler for new business opportunities, which go beyond the telco industry. Okay, so how blockchain can be a bit the glue, if you want, with this layer of trust that provides with other industries, and start, let's say, having more, if you want, businesses across the different, between the different industries. This is a more interesting area, at least for me, to look at. The thing is that it's still, you know, some ideas, exploration, nothing really yet in production. It's more some proof of concepts here and there. But definitely there is a genuine interest, okay, on blockchain as a potential technology and framework, okay, within the whole digital, let's say, transformation. But still, we are a bit at an early stage. I think mostly everybody is still at an early stage. But perhaps telcos have come a bit behind other industries like banking, for example, because with Bitcoin, banks started to get a bit worried, okay, so that you could have actually a bank and money without a bank. It was a bit more difficult to see that you could have a telco without a telco, you know, using blockchain. So that's the reason that also, basically, we build networks, so we are specialists. We also are specialists in interconnecting networks, so we are all interconnected. We connect billions of people and billions of things. So for us, like, okay, when we look at blockchain, we are really looking at it very critically, if you want, okay? So it takes time to really prove that there is something that can help, and also where telcos like us can actually add value, okay?
Going into that, because we had a previous conversation before we came to here with some of them, talking about the strategic rationale. Let's dedicate 5 minutes to think about the strategic rationale for telcos of blockchain. And we have here a chief strategy officer of a telco. It's true that the telecom industry has already invested more than 1 trillion euros in assets that are on the ground. And going to the point that you were trying to make, what is the rationale for telcos to see blockchain as a plus, in the plus side, and to participate in this kind of movement? And what do you think the rest of the ecosystem needs to learn or to understand of how we see from the telco side these new technologies?
Well, big question. I fully agree with what Jaime said. We are sometimes asked if blockchain will disrupt telco. And to my knowledge, and I fully agree with what Jaime said, the competitive edge in telco remain in deploying network and in the investment capacity. And we don't see, maybe I'm wrong, sorry, maybe I'm wrong, how blockchain can disrupt it. Where it can be disruptive, and which is both a threat and an opportunity for us, is on top of the connectivity when we provide services to our customers. And we are already used to it, because the so-called global platform are already trying to disintermediate our business. And I would say blockchain can be a tool or an opportunity to disintermediate or to leapfrog the disintermediators. So that's why we see blockchain in the development of new services as an opportunity. But I may say for Orange that we are at a preliminary stage. We are looking the different use case. It's even easier to work on new services with a disruptive technology than it is to implement into the legacy system. So to share with the ecosystem, we see more future right now into new businesses. So we talked about identity. I really believe that as telco, we have an obligation of know your customer. It means that we need to hard identify our customer before giving them an access to the network. And there have been a lot of talks about that within the GSMA at industry level. And we all are grounded industry. I can say trusted partner for the states, etc. And we can, all of us, leverage our global footprint by providing a digital identity. And this is an area where I think we can collaborate all together with the ecosystem, and also not only with the telcos, but also with other players that can bring hard identity. If I can switch on the efficiency side and the legacy business, what we see with blockchain, it's that there are opportunities to improve our processes, but it's also very challenging. You know, we have legacy, so it's like entering a new technology as disruptive as blockchain is like, some of you may understand, changing a legacy IT. Okay, so there are a lot of vendors who are able to tell you that it will be far better after than before, but those who have come across that kind of project know that it's never the case. It's always more difficult than that. So we are very cautious. We are testing some use cases. I don't know if we will go through the use cases of the international and roaming settlement, but this kind of testing could add value to our business, but we need to take it very carefully, because today, even if there are some efficiency, it's working. So integrating this technology in legacy for legacy business, I think I may think that it's not only for telco or legacy business, legacy industry. It's harder than developing new businesses.
On the other hand, some telcos, and I think this is especially in Asia, but also I see some in Europe, are starting to open specific competence centers or blockchain departments, trying to look at the opportunity with a different angle. And this is, Telefónica is one of the cases. There are many others. I just brought it as an example. What is your remit in Telefónica, for example, José Luis? How do you interact with your daily activity? Are you part of the technology group, the marketing group, the finance department?
Well, in fact, we are part of the innovation area, the global innovation area. But we started to think on blockchain in a cross approach inside the company. So during the last year, we started to meet with a lot of people who know what is blockchain and what was started to run and to launch proof of concepts and trials regarding blockchain technology. So we started to call us as the Competence Center during this year, because we are starting to grow as a group, as a team, in which we really can create new skills inside the company in order to boost what are the real role that we want to play in the blockchain. So the Competence Center is a unit now, but we have started just meeting and collaborating with a lot of people inside other units like IoT, like regulation, obviously the operation, because the main business could be infrastructure. And these key people understood or help us to understand as a company what could be the role and the opportunities that we have to identify and we have to explore, and help us to have a very strong position inside all the units. And we have now a lot of other peers in the units in which we are leveraging in order to push the proof of concepts or the projects beyond the proof of concepts in order to make a commercial product in the next year.
Thank you. What about Vodafone, Jaime? Because you are a fintech expert. Are you looking at this as another technology within fintech, as the next big thing in fintech? How do you look at this?
Yes, initially we are. It's more seen as a, if you want, general purpose technology. It's like a bit AI. Okay, so we are not yet, let's say, having a formal structure around this, how to drive that, because it's a bit, we are at an earlier stage. What we believe is that as soon as we have some validation of proof of concepts, this will be embedded in the different business units that we have. Technology, also some of them driven by commercial, finance as well. There are lots of finance and reconciliation processes, et cetera, et cetera. That said, I mean, we have a core team, okay, of people that are, let's say, more devoted to explore the different opportunities, to track those initiatives. I am part of this team, and also meeting with, let's say, other potential partners that want to run proof of concepts with us. And also companies as well. Okay, we are every day getting some people that come to us that they want to do something or try something with us. But we believe in the end that if we believe that this is gonna become mainstream technology, like AI is, for example, that is applied at every basically business unit of the business. Okay, it's core part of the digital transformation. So there will be people and experts and developers on blockchain in all those units. This is how I see the future, as I believe blockchain really will be it's a very strong candidate to help in this digital transformation. But we are still at a very early stage.
I'm conscious of the time. Can we move to the second part, which is challenges? Because I think it's the interesting part, probably for the audience. Where do you see the main challenges for blockchain or any distributed layer? Maybe, Katia, you can give us your experience.
Okay, if I have to think to the main challenge, the first that came in my mind is the cost for the mass adoption. Because until now, as far as I know, there aren't a platform blockchain ready to use. So if you want to use a blockchain for a specific use case, you have to build up. You have to spend money to develop software, and to develop software costs a lot of money. So it's something that can be achieved easily only by big companies, and is not so easy for a small and medium enterprise. And linked to this is the lack of experts, That's because the blockchain technology is a very young technology. As I said before, the first wave started in 2008. The second wave, that is the one that we are talking about, is very, very recent. We talk about 2015 with the rise of Ethereum. So it's very difficult to find experts. And if you find, sometimes they cost too much. So, of course, something is now moving. There are universities that are offering courses and education blockchain-based. Also, governments are being aware of these needs. So, I think that something is now moving, and in the next years we will have more experts to satisfy the demands, but we have to expect some years. And another challenge that I see is the cultural challenge, because the blockchain poses a decentralization model that is something very different from the world to which we are inhabits. What I mean, that our world is made of a hierarchy and centralization, from our company to biological world to education and so on. And also the regulator is set in his mind for a centralized world. So the rules that he sets sometimes don't take into account the decentralization possibility. If we think to the GDPR, the new regulation for privacy in Europe, is a regulation that is clearly thought for a centralized world. And then you have to provide effort to be compliant if you want to use a decentralized model. So this is what I see as the main challenges.
What do you think, Bénédicte? Because I know that you, in terms of challenges, we had a lot of discussions in the past.
I will quite say the same. I think what is the challenge is to build a trusted network and to choose the right ecosystem to work with. The other challenge is, of course, the skills, having the right skills, not a few ones, but widely spread into the company. And I think as it's a new technology and it's not a natural one, we need to train the brains, to think in a decentralized mode where our legacy DNA is centralized, as you said. And of course, one of the challenges is linked to other regulators. Being compliant with GDPR when you cannot remove the data from the blockchain and you have the so-called forgotten right to be forgotten, that's a real challenge. So who will win, the regulator or the technology? That we don't know. And when, as a big company are entering in that kind of technology, we must take care about being compliant, because we are the first who will be audited by the regulator.
Of course. José Luis, you are working on identity as one of the use cases. How do you see challenges in the context of a specific use case, for example?
Well, we have learned a lot about identity, and all the issues in order to scale a product or a service being interoperable with other partners. So we really think that blockchain makes sense for those use cases in which you have some kind of requirements in terms of data immutability or consensus, and we can get benefit of that just if we have a network of peers which have this consensus. So if we can build identity between a lot of partners or a lot of peers that can build different segments or different profiles to build a unique identity, our main challenge is just to agree with that partners what kind of identities we can share. And in this position, the key position in this equation is not the other peers, it's the customer that is the one that have the own of the identity. The ownership is the customer. So regarding identity, we have to really find what is the position and the contribution of the different peers that can contribute to identify or to the identity, to build the identity of the customers, but also what is the role of the customer in order to share or to have the real control of the different identities that you can share. So putting in context all the peers, all the players, and the customer in the center is the main challenge, not only for identity, for a lot of the service that could involve blockchain as a add value to the current value proposition of the current systems.
Do you think that the technology is mature enough to take it mainstream? And we were talking about the trilemma before in the presentation, meaning that you have usually to choose. You cannot have something that is fully secure, fully private, scalable, and also with the performance that you want. You usually take shortcuts and you somehow trade off. What do you think? Do you think is maturity near?
Well, if we look at the public permissionless networks like Bitcoin, Ethereum, clearly not. Okay, so and we would not deploy certain processes using those networks because obviously we are gonna have problems, plus also costs. If we then move into more private blockchains, then there is the question whether, okay, wasn't that invented already? You know, distributed databases. So perhaps the name blockchain comes with certain magic around and makes things easier to, to push. Still, I mean, if we talk about the challenges, I think one of the things that doesn't help also is the whole hype. Also 2 years ago, basically blockchain was equal to Bitcoin, okay, practically. And Bitcoin was for organized crime, to operate without cash, basically. So that was the very basic idea in many executives' minds, no? So to do the transition to, from, okay, Bitcoin, by the way, also Bitcoin has other good applications, okay, to blockchain alone, and then explain why blockchain would be better than a distributed database if it's not a public blockchain, it's another challenge. Huh? So the understanding of the technology of this framework, really be able to articulate what are the benefits, okay? What is the business case? What are the benefits of using blockchain for that particular problem or opportunity is not an easy task, okay? And especially you cannot get in technicalities, okay? You have to use a business language if you want to get the decision makers really helping you with pushing certain projects and certain investments. So, and I think this is coming back to the technology maturity. I think certainly not for the public, and that's the reason that we are exploring, let's say, more playing with more still public but permission networks where we have more control on how the nodes work. For example, we are, like Telefónica, members of the cross-sectorial Alastria blockchain in Spain, where you have all the telcos, utilities, banks, insurance companies, etc., etc. And we are using, it's also a blockchain network based on Ethereum. It's a quorum network. And we are trying some proof of concepts in that network to learn, okay, and to see exactly what is the stage of maturity, okay, and certainly works better for us than going into and trying directly into public networks. I mean, you can do certain very controlled things, but not really huge scale processes that we are used to in telcos.
What is your opinion, all of you, on the standards, on the way we are in terms of standards? Do you think are they good enough, or we need to do a lot of work still on them? What's your, José Luis, maybe you?
Well, one of the main concerns about the blockchain evolution is the interoperability between the different technologies. So you say about the fragmentation now in the market. So we talk about blockchain, but blockchain is not only one, and we have a lot of options in order to get the best benefits from one technology or another. And in the near future, obviously, networks have to interoperate. So from the telco industry, we have learned to interoperate our network. So probably we can play a role in this main concern or main issue regarding the blockchain evolution.
So I think we are running out of time. So maybe can we do a last kind of question? What would be the recommendation for the ecosystem that is here? If they want to collaborate with companies like the telco side, what would you? We all have to shape a common place to be. What would be your recommendation to them? Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I think that in the blockchain field, but also in the other blockchain, to build up a healthy ecosystem is mandatory, I think. And this is, I haven't a rule, I haven't a methodology to build up an health ecosystem. I can say what we are doing in Telecom Italia, and we are leveraging partnership with big IT players, but also with blockchain-based startup, very specialized. And we are also leveraging the startup ecosystem through our working capital unit, Team VCAP, that already in 2018, but also in 2019 will be very focused on startup blockchain-based. We are also participating in some consortia. One among the other is the IoT for Industry framework inside the Horizon 2020 program, where we joined as a partner of the SCS Pole in France, proposing a project in the agri-food and Made in Italy domain to with use cases using blockchain for anti-counterfeiting and value-chain traceability. I think that it's very important to work in a coordinated way to build up a very healthy ecosystem.
You good?
Good.
All right. Really, we gotta wrap up, but I'm taking the microphone because it's gonna carry on. You know, we don't have time. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was a great panel. Thank you, Javier. Thank you to the panelists.